Call our meeting of the Falls Township Board of Supervisors to order. It's about 7:32 p.m. We'll begin with the salute to the flag, please.
Falls Township Governmental Access Channel 22 on Comcast Cablevision and Channel 40 on Verizon. You're about to view the Falls Township Board of Supervisor meeting for Tuesday, July 20th, 2010. This program was pre-recorded earlier for playback at this time.
All right, Mrs. Pullen, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Zupka?
Here.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Here.
Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dent?
Here.
Mr. Snipes?
Here.
Okay, I want to begin this evening on a somber note, unfortunately. I want to ask for a moment of silence for a gentleman who passed away recently, Mr. Charles Mazenko, who was a longtime resident of Falls Township, worked in the Public Works Department for about 12 years for Falls Township. Also was a U.S. Navy veteran of the Korean War, helped out a lot at Levittown Continental and also at his church, St. Michael, the Archangel. And so we extend our condolences to his family and friends, and I'll ask for a brief moment of silence in his memory. Okay, thank you. All right, on our agenda this evening, we have quite a few things on here. We're going to begin with a request of waiver from Land Development for Land and Sea Properties, LLC, 400 Rock Run Road. Mr. Gray?
Yes, as mentioned, this is a waiver of land development application for Land and Sea Forest Products PA Corporation, located at 400 Rock Run Road, tax map parcel 13-28-62-003. Tonight, the applicant is requesting the board to consider approving their project consisting of improvements consisting of a T-shaped storage sheds over existing lumber stockpiles.
Okay.
Tonight, representing the applicant is Mr. Jeff Skinner.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here tonight with Wade Carden, owner and applicant of Land and Sea Lumber Products, with me in the audience, and here to he's prepared to discuss his project that we have application before you for a waiver of land development. We appreciate you meeting the time constraints. We had submitted this, and the project seems to be moving very quickly, and Falls Township's been amenable to meet with us, so we appreciate that. The existing parcel is known as tax parcel 132862-3. It's also known as 400 Rock Run Road. It is an 8-acre lot within the Penn Warner Park, Industrial Park. Let me get out here to the this is the plan you see before you. The 8 acres. There's an existing 16,500 square foot building, which houses wood preserving equipment, and the company brings in lumber, and it is gone through the treatment process for preservation, and then it's stacked out in the yard awaiting distribution to lumber yards in the area. Land and Sea purchased the property in 2001, and they distribute to many local lumber yards, but primarily to Lowe's, which is approximately 80% of their distribution. The site is almost entirely impervious between the paved aisleways and the stone, hard paved stone areas where the wood is stacked. Commonwealth Wood Preservers was the prior owner of the site and did had the same processes going on beginning back in the 1980s. The site is sandwiched between two large warehouses. Kmart is down below the site here, and I believe it's Toys R Us is up above. The site was before the board in 1995. Commonwealth Wood Preservers had a plan approved for an addition onto the existing building, which was never built, and also a drainage system was installed at that time to better funnel all the drainage which comes down across the property, collects in the system, and is metered out to the existing wetlands behind the property. What we are proposing tonight is to request approval for construction of 8 lumber sheds, storage roofs over top of the existing stacks of lumber in the yard. We have an aerial photo. Unfortunately, I only have one copy of it. But what it shows is how the existing building is there, and all the lumber is stacked out in the yard, essentially in long rows for awaiting distribution to the local lumber yards. And what the local lumber yards, including Lowe's, are now requiring is that these stacks be covered by a roof to protect from sun damage. Evidently, that is a big issue when it comes to distribution of preserved wood, is whether it's damaged by sun, and if so, it's not as easily moved. So they are requiring this from all the preservers, and hence my client is in that situation where he is needing to get these roofs over the lumber yard. What we are proposing is to put the storage roofs directly over the existing stack areas. There will be no disruption of any of the areas around it. The lumber is moved off, and the roof would be constructed and the lumber replaced. So there would be no disruption to any of the infrastructure or other systems within the site. The need for expediting this is due to the fact that towards the end of summer is when his stock is low, and it's much easier to do that then. All the lumber's been moved through the system, and during the winter it starts to build back up. It's not as easily moved through. So our time constraint is such that we're requesting to expedite this as quickly as possible to meet those needs. So we are proposing to essentially put what's known as a T structure. It's a system of posts that will be right in the middle of the aisleway or the storage areas, and come up with a T coming out approximately 30 feet tall that would cover the stacked areas as shown here. There will be no change to the aisleways or the traffic patterns. The lumber is already there, acting as an aisleway in between, so therefore there really is not a disruption to the system here. We also believe that because of this system, and the storm drainage will not be falling on the product as well, so thereby keeping the product clean of that issue. As I stated before, the existing site is almost completely impervious. The stone where the lumber has been stacked for 20, 30 years is almost completely impervious. So the roof above will not change any of the stormwater issues that will continue to flow to the existing system and out to the wetlands. We are not proposing any guttering system. The water will run off as it does now and across the stone and asphalt to the system. We are not planning to change anything else of the site. We do have one small building that will come down. It is really just a roof system now as well that has some lumber storage underneath it, but other than that there will be nothing changed around the existing preservation building, parking area, driveways, or other accesses to the system. We do not believe that this system will impact the site or the surrounding area in any issues with stormwater, traffic, or otherwise from a site standpoint, as it is, sandwiched between two warehouses as well. So if you'd like, I'd take some questions now, and then we can go to the engineering reviews.
If you don't mind, would you, because I think a lot of the questions will have to do with the engineering review letter, which the one we have is June 10th, 2010,
Yes.
that's the one you have. If you wouldn't mind just addressing some of those issues, I think that'll probably answer a lot of questions from people.
Sir, could you take the aerial photograph and put it on the easel, please? And answer one question for me before our engineer starts to discuss this. How many board feet are you contemplating in putting under roof? All of that, or
Essentially, yes.
what we're looking at? It's going to be the entire thing will have a roof canopy
Yes.
over it, is that it?
Yes, each of these,
That's correct.
yes, if I could, Wade would be happy.
Yeah, you have to use a microphone, sir. Sorry.
Thank you.
We would have, the first shed would be over the entire footprint that you see right here. Second shed would be over this entire footprint. The third shed would be here. The fourth shed would be here. And then we would have the fifth shed, sixth shed, and seventh shed over the product that you see here. And the seasonal flow, when we're fully stocked, as you see with some of these rows that are 50 feet long, the whole yard is like that. So on a board footage basis, what you're looking at here is roughly, I would put in the neighborhood of 15 million board feet. When I'm fully stocked, I will have about 30 million board feet. So if you filled every alley to the max, that would be the capacity that we call our full inventory position.
We're talking about pressure-treated lumber. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else, any other kind of wood product?
No, 100% of this plant's focus in life is pressure treating. So we have two types. We have untreated southern yellow pine, and then we have treated southern yellow pine. So everything on this side of the building is prior to production. Everything on this side going back is ready for shipment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Skinner, if you wouldn't mind addressing some of the issues raised in the June 10th letter, let us know which issues will complies and explain why. You may have some, if you have any issues with anything on here, explain what those are.
Okay, I'd be happy to. We are discussing the June 10th review letter by T&M Associates.
Correct.
First section is dealing with issues for zoning ordinance. The first comment was requesting an additional note stating what the building heights would be, and we will comply with that. Add that to the plan. Next note deals with what is a determination of a minimum lot area for principal buildings, as we felt that the sheds were not a principal to the site. They were accessory, as the site is being used for this purpose now. We had only listed the one principal building. The engineer requests that we use 9 for it, and 1 for each shed. So we will show that on the plan as well.
Okay.
The next comment deals with dimensions for parking from street line and side lot lines. As I stated earlier, this site was approved in 1995, and the parking shown today is as was approved then. And so we've adjusted showing the dimensions, but believe that because that doesn't quite meet the ordinance now, it was approved in 1995 as such. So
All right, let me just stop you for a second. Mr. Clark, in terms of that issue, is this a zoning variance necessary, or?
The,
Make sure you use a microphone, too.
I'm going to defer very quickly to Mr. Sullivan on this and then determine whether or not a zoning variance is necessary.
This comment more dealt with the number of spaces as opposed to the location. You've demonstrated on the plan that you have the required number of spaces.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
we have the required number. We have added calculations for that as well.
Right.
So
The
then-
location is, at worst, a existing non-conforming condition.
Okay.
I don't believe a variance is necessary for this project, is it?
That's correct. There's no variance required at this time.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next comment deals with additional approvals from PADP and OSHA for the use on the site, and we have added notations to the plan of the existing permits the client has, the owner has, for treating of wood on the site, and we're prepared to submit documentation of the same to the township.
Mr. Harvey, if I could
Yeah.
interrupt, excuse me.
Sure.
Perhaps it might be simpler if Mr. Skinner told us what he's requesting waivers from, because it sounds as if the first 4 that he's gone through, those are all
Right.
will complies.
Yes.
So perhaps if there is a waiver that he is
Right. Are there-
requesting, it's better if he addresses.
If you'd like.
Yeah, are there any issues on here? Assuming, I guess, a lot of these are will comply. It'd be nice if all of them were will comply. But are there any that you feel that you're going to have difficulty meeting?
There are only 2 outstanding from the engineer's letter, and
Okay.
the one deals with what is a waiver of, waiver of land development requirement, and essentially we are requesting a waiver of that to expedite this process.
Okay.
And also the other item deals with street trees. The prior plan showed street trees all along Rock Run Road, and some of those have died over the years, causing gaps, and we have estimated there are 21 trees needed to meet the requirements to fulfill the township ordinances. As these trees would probably suffer the same fate as the ones that were installed before, we are requesting a waiver of that and are prepared to donate a fee in lieu of the planting of those that would be borne by the client for planting those. We're prepared to donate that fee to Falls Township,
Okay.
and
And those are the only 2 waivers?
those are the only 2.
Okay. And everything else is will comply?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, I was going to have some board comments, so we'll start right now. Mr. Zupko?
thank you. On the engineer's letter, I guess it's page 2, under subdivision and land development, the third one down, 191-34 D1, says applicant is requesting a waiver from the section of the ordinance which provides clear site triangle 500 foot of driveway.
We are no longer requesting that waiver. We
Okay.
will comply with that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Mrs. Kozlowski?
Yes, you mentioned donating fees. Have you done a cost estimate on what that amount might be?
We have discussed it with the engineer, yes. We believe the fee for it would be approximately $3,000.
I didn't hear an answer to my question about the number of board feet that you'll be storing there. Do you have a figure on that?
I think
believe
gentleman said 30 million, under full capacity, 30 million.
30 million board feet,
30 million.
yeah.
And in doing your pressure-treated lumber, is there odor? Is there danger from chemicals or anything like that? I'd like you to address that issue, if you would, please.
When I purchased the facility was a, if you have a deck that's a few years old, it's probably made out of CCA, which is chrome, copper, and arsenic. And several years ago, prior to the acquisition of this facility, the industry went to a copper-based formulation. And the copper-based formulation is a environmentally friendly preservative. CCA was also an environmentally friendly preservative. But the idea of arsenic and decks could never be conveyed, or that battle could never be won. There's more arsenic in a pound of shrimp than there is in a pound of lumber. But I have kids. I have 4 kids that are here in the Northeast, and I don't think I can convince my own wife that arsenic is good, so I don't think I can convince the rest of the industry. So we are using a copper-based formula. There is absolutely no odor. There's no odor at the plant level. There's no odor in the tank farm areas. There's no odor with the concentrate.
Okay.
Thank you. You've answered any concerns I have.
Okay, Mr. Snipes?
And you said you would attach the standards of the Pennsylvania DEP and OSHA for any kind of, I'm assuming, any kind of worker hazards or spillage or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that would need to be at a facility like this?
Yes, we're prepared to submit all existing permits that have been obtained from those agencies.
I don't have any more questions about the engineer's report.
Okay.
Engineer's review.
All right. Mr. Dents?
No questions.
Okay. And my questions were already answered, so I appreciate that. Mr. Sullivan, any questions or concerns from you?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Is there any public comment needed? Let's see one hand. Is there a motion to open public comment?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Mr. Binney?
Good evening, Brian Binney, Falls Township. Mr. Skinner stated that no changes were going to be made to the driveway aisles or widths, but I believe at the Planning Commission, the fire marshal's letter indicated he had a problem with one of the aisles. It was 19 feet, and the other aisles were bigger. And I believe the applicant agreed to change the aisle widths in certain places to accommodate the fire marshal's concerns. I just want to make sure that's addressed. And also one of our concerns was, as the applicant's proceeding as this is a accessory use, we don't want those buildings to become enclosed and to be used for other purposes. So if there's some language that can be in the agreement or on the plans that would prevent that, that's what we were hoping for.
Okay. All right. Mr. Skinner, I'll let you address the issue of the fire marshal's
Yes,
concerns.
we received the fire marshal's letter that night and have agreed to separate the buildings to meet the fire marshal's requirements. They had squeezed together up at the upper end, and because of that, we are able to jockey some things around and meet his requirements.
Okay.
As far as enclosing of the buildings, we are prepared to add a note onto the plan stating that any enclosure of the buildings, of these buildings shown, would require a subdivision land development review by the township.
Okay. Mr. Clark?
Well, that's nice that they'll add that to the plan, but that's a given. So you're approving them to put sheds over the top of them if they ever wanted to come back in. Whether there was a note on the plan or not a note on the plan, they would have to go through land development to enclose them. If there's a note on the plan, it's an extra protection and extra information that the township has, but it's not necessarily required. And Mr. Sullivan's letter references that the township fire marshal shall be consulted to establish the adequacy of access and circulation for firefighting equipment and other emergency vehicles, and Mr. Skinner has indicated that's a will comply.
Yes.
Okay. And the concerns about closing in these coverings, for lack of a better term, that would stay with them even if Land and Sea sold the property 10 years from now with somebody else. That would still, those restrictions would still be there.
Those restrictions would still be there, but again, even if we didn't have those restrictions or didn't have that note on the plan, they couldn't just go and enclose these without having them back before us for land development.
Okay. All right.
Could you please indicate on the map where the fire marshal's concern is and what particular aisle is that?
Originally, we had this aisleway at 19.5 feet, and we were able to expand that, pushing these two buildings down.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
The upper aisleway here was 19.5 feet, and it just worked out that way. But because of the fire marshal's concern, with this aisleway being 24 and this one being 29, we were able to push the buildings down to meet his requirements for the 20 feet in that aisleway.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Denton, you had a question?
The fire marshal in his letter says that fire breaks will be required under the roofs so that in the event of a fire, the spread can be slowed or stopped. Is that the aisles, the covered aisles that are shown?
These will be the aisles that you see going through the buildings right here.
That's what he wanted, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have one thing about the changing of these buildings. When I first bought the plan, I was, as anybody that's in business today, uncertain about the times that we're going through, and I spent a lot of time thinking about resale of the facility. And Mr. Major, when he was with us, I must have spent $50,000 of engineering over the years doing a box concept. And I kept going back to on a resale side, being where we're located, the box is a good deal. But being in the lumber business, we're dealing with a wet product. And if you box that wet product up, you're going to have mold. So by us making the decision to do a T-shed with full ventilation, we're making a major commitment that this is a one-use site. And I'm 38 years old. I plan on being here many, many years. On top of that, I've leased all a large building in front of us, 200 Rock Run Road. It's roughly 25,000 square feet. Created a trucking company there that's hauling all the products out of this plant. And in a very rough economic environment, I've added 80 jobs locally in the last 3 years. So we're here for the long run, and what you're doing by hopefully approving this, I'll just say it as simple as I can say it. I deal with a big customer. He said, you don't cover your wood, you lose your business. And I don't want to lose the business. So if we don't get this cover, I'm going to be out there holding tarps over the product, taking pictures of it. So I don't think that's going to be a good picture either. Thank you.
All right.
I'm not going to let you lose your business. I like Lowe's, and I like pressure-treated lumber.
All right. Is there any other public comment? I see no hands or motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, then. We are looking at a request waiver from land development for land and sea properties.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
yes.
Did we look at the Bucks County Conservation District letter? Where it lists as inadequate for erosion and sediment and pollution control.
I think that's I saw that in reviewing
There are
for
5 points
tonight.
that they have.
But that's really an issue that's more with them than with us, correct? They'd have to get approved by them before they can do anything anyway, correct, Mr.?
Yeah, one of the conditions of approval of the resolution is obtaining a earth disturbance permit from the Bucks County Conservation District.
Right, so they have,
So those items in that letter will have to be resolved to their satisfaction.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we have met with the Bucks County Conservation District just last week and went over those issues, and we're working with them to get those resolved and believe they will be resolved shortly.
okay,
Okay.
all right,
Yep, thank you.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
okay. All right.
May I?
Yeah, I'm just going to make sure you highlighted the two areas where the waivers were requested. Did you have them written down or have them here?
I don't. I move that we approve Land and Sea Properties request for waivers from land development at 400 Rock Run Road in tax parcel number 13-28-62-3. The waivers will consist of section 191.18.1 and 191.48.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wislowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dent?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes. And
Very much.
Mr. Chairman, their agreement for was it approximately $3,000 for the trees?
Right.
That'll be a understood agreement between us.
Sure.
Actually, Mr. Sipes, it'll go into the resolution.
Thank you.
What's that?
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Nice meeting you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. Resolution number for that one? Sorry.
That was Resolution 1014.
1014. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, next item on our agenda is a certificate of appropriateness for 31 Yardley Avenue, pool and a fence. Mr. Gray?
Yes, this is a certificate of appropriateness. This is a project that is being done at 31 Yardley Avenue in Fallsington. They are proposing to construct a new pool and fence. The name of the applicant is Thomas Jones. This has been reviewed and approved by the Historical Review Board. At this time, the board is asked to consider approval of this certificate of appropriateness.
Okay. All right. And I believe the property owners are here tonight if, or is here tonight if anybody has any concerns or questions. So, Mr. Jones, this is a new pool, or is this you?
Fiberglass insert. It's new to me, yes.
Okay. Okay.
New to the property, yes.
All right. And you're putting obviously the fence around it as code requires.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I know where you live. I know the property. It's
Yes.
relatively difficult, I guess, to see this pool and fence from the street unless you were really, really looking for it, I think.
It will be, yes.
So, and I think that's probably why it was approved unanimously by the Historic Review Board, because they didn't really see an issue with this interfering with the historic nature of the community or your property. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
No, and I also don't see any a reason not to approve it. It isn't taking away from anything, and it's something that's we'll say upgrading the family's lifestyle. Right.
Mrs. Puzlowski?
I live on Yardley Avenue, and I like what you're doing, and I certainly am going to support it.
Thank you.
Mr. Snipes?
Mr. Chairman, what is the height, or maybe you can tell us, what is the height of the fence?
6 feet.
6 feet, okay.
Be a black wrought iron or aluminum pool fence, 4
Right.
inches slots, no less than 45 inches of climbing space.
You said it's 4 inches between
Yeah,
between
it's
bars, between
It's
runners?
a standard pool fence. I believe the minimum on those is 4 inches.
I was just thinking about safety following that tragic pool accident, I think up in Massachusetts, where some children were drowned.
Wow, there's children in the area, and there's 5 grandchildren, so there's not
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
photograph.
safety. We're hedging
Yes,
on
I
the
was
fact
looking
of
at it.
safety rather than.
Right. Yeah, and there's a photograph. The applicant has supplied a photograph of the fence he'll be installing.
Yeah, I see that. 6 feet sounds
Okay.
adequate.
Mr.
That's
Dents?
it.
No, my questions were all answered.
Okay. Is there any public comment needed? I see no hands. Sir, a motion.
Excuse me. I never took a zoning payoff before, but I want one of those grandchildren if you're going to get my vote.
No, that wouldn't. I couldn't do that.
Okay.
My life would be in danger.
I keep trying.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for pool and fence at 31 Yardley Avenue?
So moved.
Moved.
Motion made
All of
by.
us, we're all on board.
Motion made by Mr. Zupka. I think he was the first one I heard. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Snipes. Very well. Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll accept donations.
All right. Okay. Items 3 and 4 are connected to each other, and so we're going to kind of deal with them one and the same. They're two different things that we have to pass. We'll do public comment once, since the two issues are so tightly, or basically they're 1 and 1A with each other. It deals with the pension plan agreement that the township is entering into with the Pennsylvania Municipal Retirement Board. This is at the request of our Public Works employees. They've requested a change in their pension fund, and so we have to pass a couple things here. One, an agreement with the new pension plan, and then another is to advertise an ordinance change to change our laws to reflect that we've entered into this. So it's two things tied together. Mr. Gray, you want to add anything there?
Yeah, some of the highlights of the agreement include retirement date would be 60 years of age. There's an early retirement date of 55. Members are required to contribute 5% of their salary. Vesting for all current Public Works employees is 100% fully vested. New employees hired after September 1st of this year would require 8 years of service. It would be taken out of the biweekly payroll, and that's about it. Again, it would be effective September 1st.
Okay. All right. So the first issue we'll be looking at is considering the agreement between Falls Township, okay, and the Pennsylvania Municipal Retirement Board. Let's see, are there any comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zipka?
No, I have none.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Is there a difference financially in this as it pertains to the retiree and as it pertains to the township?
I don't believe there's anything with the township. For whatever reason, the Public Works employees have chosen this. They want to go with this plan. Is it correct, Mr.
Yeah,
Gray?
they like the structure of it. They feel it's more of a defined, even though it's a defined contribution, they like the structure being set up similar to a defined benefit plan. The payments and the way it'll be paid out after they retire are, they like the way it'll be structured. So they like this plan, and it's also a plan that TOFA has as well, so they like this.
If we kept the old plan as opposed to the new one, is there a difference that the taxpayers
No.
would be paying?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Snipes?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents? None. And I have none either. So, the second issue, like I said, is an ordinance which we'll have to advertise. Is there any, we'll take public comment once on the two issues, again, because they are connected. Is there any public comment needed? I see no hands. All right, is there a motion then to approve the agreement between Falls Township and the PA Municipal Retirement Board?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion is made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and the second step would be authorizing an advertisement of the amendment to Chapter 74 retirement. And again, this would be changing our code with a new ordinance that would reflect the change that we've just entered into with this new pension plan. Is there a motion to authorize advertisement?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, item 5, is consider approval for a traffic study for the Thorn Ridge T. Rose Drive intersection to be completed by traffic planning and design. Mr. Gray.
Yes, Traffic Planning and Design has provided a proposal for a multi-way stop study at the intersection of Thornridge Drive and T. Rose Lane. This traffic study will determine if a multi-way stop control is warranted for this intersection. The cost of this project is $2,500. At this time, the board is asked to consider approving this proposal.
Okay. This grew out of some concerns from people in the neighborhood regarding the intersection and visibility. We've had our police as well as our traffic engineers go out and take a look at this site intersection. They do agree that there are some issues with visibility. They feel stop signs are an appropriate way to deal with making sure that no accidents happen at that intersection. There are stop signs out there currently. We're allowed to put them for 90 days on an emergency basis, and that was felt to be necessary. However, in order to have them permanent, PennDOT requires a traffic study to show that they really are necessary, and so that's what we're approving this evening, if we choose to approve this study by Traffic Planning and Design. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zipka?
No, we had the meeting recently. We know we have a lot of traffic issues in the township, and we have to get started somewhere.
Okay.
We have to move ahead with it.
Sorry, Mrs. Wisłowski?
I was impressed with that meeting, Mr. Harvey, and I was glad that I made an effort to get out to it. And I agree with Mr. Zupka. We have to start somewhere, and this looks like a good place to start.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
No, I'm happy to approve this.
Mr. Dents?
No, I agree as well.
Okay, and I have no comments or questions. Comments or questions from the public? One hand, is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Brian Benny, Falls Township. I know the intersection and it does need stop signs. My question is in general, every time we want to put up a stop sign in a township-owned street, we have to spend $2,500 for a traffic study so that PennDOT can approve it?
If it is, we're not allowed to put up stop signs for speeding, and that's not what this is for. But my understanding is that if a stop sign has to go up, as PennDOT requires that there be evidence of why the stop sign has to be there.
Even though we own the roads?
Even though we own the roads. That was something we discussed at length. That's why we went ahead and put the stop sign up anyway, just because we think it's necessary, and traffic planning and design assures us 90 days is more than enough time for them to go out and do this study and put together a report that they feel that PennDOT will accept.
Thanks.
But, thank you. Any other public comment? See no hands? Okay. Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Is there a motion then to approve the traffic planning and design study of the T. Rose Lane, Thornridge Drive intersection for the amount of $2,500?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wislowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next item on our agenda is, we've heard a little bit about this before, in terms of changing a zoning parcel. The service station located on Trenton Road directly behind Avonroe at some point in the past was zoned age qualified, which not really sure when that happened or why that happened, but it's an obvious mistake. And so this is changing our zoning map to change it back to, or what it should be, which is neighborhood commercial, to allow it to function as it's supposed to function. So this has been authorized, Mr. Gray?
June 15th.
Okay. All right. So we'd be looking to adopt it and make this change. Comments or questions from board members?
No.
Zupka? No.
None.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
Yes, I'm concerned because I do believe in age-qualified developments, and we certainly don't need any more commercial. And so I am very, very lukewarm about this, if not opposed. I'm not happy.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
No. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
All right, I have no comments or questions. All right, is there any public comment needed? See no hands. All right, then, this would be ordinance 09.
1003.
Oh, I'm sorry, 10. I'm reading here, 2010-03. I forgot what year it was. Okay, 1003. Is there a motion then to accept or to adopt ordinance 2010-03?
I'll make the motion to accept and adopt ordinance number 2010-03.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wislowski?
No.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, item 7, consider authorizing notice of intent to award the bid for the Fallsington Library renovations. This has been a project that's been ongoing, starting with a discussion. I remember having a discussion with Mrs. Harris a couple of years ago, about needing new lights. And as some different monies became available through community development block grants, that changed to lights and a roof and front steps and some other improvements, all of which are very, very necessary. And so we went out to bid, and so far has been the good news, and now comes the bad news. I'll let Mr. Gray and Mr. Sullivan here talk a little bit about that.
T&M engineers have reviewed the bids submitted to Falls Township and publicly opened on July 19, 2010 for the Fallsington Library Improvement Project. The bid was from Titanium Enterprises, Inc. Total bid amount was $270,787. It is recommended that the Board of Supervisors reject the bid provided by Titanium. Further, it is recommended that the Board of Supervisors authorize the Township Engineer's Office to re-advertise this project. The Board is asked to consider this motion.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan, just want to talk briefly about why we're rejecting this. There's several reasons, but
There are several reasons. We had a pre-bid about a week ago, and we had 4 people show up. Bucks County Office of Community Development made that a mandatory pre-bid, so only the people that showed up to bid were allowed to bid on the project. We had at least 3 contractors we thought were going to bid, and they assured us they would. We only got 1 bid. They also say that we have to have 2 qualified bidders. Now, Mr. Clark and I could probably argue that particular point, but unfortunately, the bid that we received, there was no bid bond with the bid, meaning there's no bid security for the numbers that they gave us, and there was also no consent of surety, meaning they had no proof of being able to bond themselves for the project. Those are 2 very important items. Without those, we cannot recommend that you accept this bid. There were a couple of problems in the math on the bid forms. It wasn't a very good bid. They were seemed like a good contractor, probably qualified, but their paperwork was very substandard.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
No, I have none.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
Well, I think that the Falsington Library is as essential to Falsington as veins and arteries are to the human body. I love that little library, and Falsington has an identity with it. I'm proud to live on the same street, and that library is in great need of repair. It's something that we need to have and need to keep, and I wholeheartedly support it. So I don't want any people who might be here from historic Falsington to be dismayed that we're rejecting the bid. It makes sense to reject it, and we'll get some interest in it and get your improvements, albeit later than we planned.
Okay, Mr. Snipes?
Mr. Sullivan, did you say that you expect these other parties you thought were interested to come through in the next round, or you have a reason why they did not do it the first time around?
We have no reason why they didn't, but recently in an email we received, there is a procedure where we can issue invitations to bid. The Office of Community Development has contractors that they would expect to bid on something like this that are reputable. We'll also contact some of the other bidders that didn't have enough time to get the bid together. So we'll make sure that we get at least 2 qualified bids, and I'm sure we're going to get more than that this time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dents?
No questions or comments.
Okay. And I know it's disappointing, obviously. We want to see it move forward, and hopefully before the weather gets bad, we can start doing some things, on that, especially on the roof, to get the roof done, and all the inside work can be done in the wintertime. Is there
Mr.
any-
Harvey,
Yes.
the weather has been so bad.
Well-
I'm looking forward to winter.
Well, I mean, in terms of the roof, heat doesn't bother the roof. Rain bothers the roof, and we haven't had enough of that. But that might be a good thing in terms of this. I know there's quite a few people here from the Falsington Library, and I know not very happy faces at the moment, and I understand that. And I also see another hand in the back. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Mr. Dell, I know you had your hand up.
Are we trying to get people to bid for the whole package deal?
Yes.
Or is there an advantage to that as opposed to just calling a roofer for the roof, electrician for the lighting, and is there some reason we're trying to get someone to do the whole ball of wax? Because I can't believe that someone's excellent at everything. And I would think it would make more sense to call a roofer. I mean, these guys, there's a lot of contractors sitting around doing nothing. I can't imagine no one showing up to bid on this job, but calling out separate contractors to do each job individually. And like you said, the roof, I like to see that done before it does more damage to the inside and costs me another $150,000 for plaster and whatever's in material in the library. So I thought maybe if you broke up this bid package into smaller packs, people would have, you might have 5 different contractors there at different times, but I think you'd end up with a lower price and get the job done.
Well, let's find out if there's a reason why that can't be done. Mr. Sullivan?
It's not that it can't be done. We can certainly look at breaking out certain elements of the bid, but each item would have to be separately bid. This is community development block grant funding. It's federal funding.
Okay.
We have to go through a bid process. If we decide to make 5 separate bids, then that's 5 separate bid packages, 5 separate pre-bid meetings. It becomes a little cumbersome at that point. But there's no reason why we can't take a look and maybe break out the 2 separate bids of some kind like that.
Okay.
Maybe at least the roof and the windows, maybe something that a basic contractor would do, but the electrical just someone who does electrical. But I'm sorry,
Right.
go,
They're
Mr. Downs.
large, when you're looking at the bid documents, the biggest number there was the electrical, was the biggest portion of it.
Yes.
So maybe even just splitting it up and,
And you don't know that this guy even
prime
specializes
contractors, right.
in the electrical. He might do that, just do it because it pertains to the rest of the job, but that might not be
I'm sure
his-
he's going to sub it out, because I'm
Right.
sure he needs a
That's
licensed
the other
electrician.
thing. He's going to sub it out, and he's going to still have to make money off of it. So I would say, even if you group it in with 2 contractors as opposed to 5, but I think you'll get better results and you'll get more people bidding on it. Can we get
Sorry,
that for you?
no,
Okay.
it's okay.
Okay. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, is there any of the public comment needed? No? Okay, motion to close public comment?
Mr. Dents is an electrician. I think he just volunteered.
All right, all in favor of closing public comment? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right then, so we're looking for 2 things. First off, on the recommendation of our engineer and township manager, we'll be looking to reject this bid and authorize, and then second thing to do is to authorize the engineer to rebid this project. Do we have to?
Question.
Yeah.
How much time will we have from the time we advertise until the bids have to be in?
Mr. Sullivan's already worked out a timetable with that.
May we hear it, please?
We expect to be back at the next supervisor meeting on the 17th of August with a recommendation for award.
August 17th?
That will be the next supervisors meeting. We'll re-advertise, go out to bid by the end of this week. Have the pre-bid sometime in early August, and then the bids will probably be opened around the 11th of August. So they'll be
Where
ready.
will the advertising be placed? Just in the Courier Times or elsewhere?
We only advertise in the Courier Times, we being the township. Other companies, and what they do is they call us and ask for bid quantities, and we usually give that information out so that they can put it in other publications like Construction Journal, Construction Information Systems.
Did you write the bid specs?
Yes.
Could we have them published on our website and advertised that way as well?
Don't see why not.
Let's
Yes.
do it.
Okay. All right, so we'll look first for a motion to reject the bid from Titanium Enterprises for the Folsington Library.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zepka?
Yes.
Mrs. Wislowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snakes?
Yes.
And then we'll look for a motion to authorize the engineer to rebid this project in the best way he sees fit, and with the eye toward the August 17th meeting of having bid documents to award that night.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, so that's our timetable there. Okay, next item on our agenda is consider lease agreement with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection for the Quaker Penn boat ramp. Just actually answered an email on this earlier today, someone asking me about the boat ramp and the progress that's being made, or the process itself. This lease that we're entering into with the state of Pennsylvania allows us to build the ramp in the water. If you're going to do anything in the water, you're essentially leasing that area of land so the state of Pennsylvania gives you permission to actually put something into the water, in this case, a ramp. Obviously, it means that we are the ones responsible for it. We can't build it in the water and then say to the state of Pennsylvania that, well, the river's yours, now you have to fix it if something goes wrong with it. If we build it, we have to fix it. That's basically what this lease is doing. This is obviously a necessary step toward moving forward. And Mr. Sullivan, I'll ask you in terms of your expectations with the Army Corps of Engineers. That's all we're waiting for at this point, correct, in terms of the permit to begin?
All we're waiting for is to have that Army Corps permit in our hand. We've been assured by the Army Corps representatives that the permit will be issued. They always come up with 1 or 2 little things at the end. I want to make sure that Waste Management has their certificates for the area where we're going to dispose of our dredge spoils and things like that. We expect to have that permit before the end of this month.
Okay. All right. All right, comments or questions from board members regarding the lease agreement with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection for the boat ramp? Mr. Zipka.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I am not really opposed to allowing people who enjoy boating having a place to put in our township or our residents. I do think this could be better served putting it in, I think in the Biles Island project somewhere. But right now, I think we're just at the tip of our traffic problems, and we're getting into that project, and I think we're going to have a very large budget, I should say, for just the what we're doing with traffic, and I'd really rather see any monies that's going to be spent on this not to be spent with the boat ramp, but to go to our safety of our residents and for our traffic program. I really think we're just at the tip of the iceberg, and as it was brought up a little while ago, just to put permanent stop signs in, we're going to pay $2,500 for a study. I think by the time we get done, this is going to run into the 7-figure or maybe even a little higher range with our traffic program. So no, I won't support this at all.
Maybe 9.
Okay, Mrs. Kozlowski?
I think we have higher priorities for our money, and I don't intend to support it either. I think we're getting the cart ahead of the horse. I think we need to decide what we're going to be doing at Biles Island and do some more imaginative planning in this township. Sometimes I am just so dismayed when I look at the sort of planning that we do. It's troublesome, and I will not support it.
Mr. Snipes?
Mr. Clark, could you, this all seems like this really is state-required boilerplate language. Is there anything in here that you think that we should be particularly noting or being aware of in this lease, I guess we're calling it?
No, it is a lease agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection, and essentially what this does is, since our boat ramp, or a portion of our boat ramp, will occupy submerged lands of the Commonwealth,
right,
we have to enter into this lease agreement. This lease agreement gives us, I keep saying lease agreement, it's actually a license agreement. It will give the township the authority to build the boat ramp, repair it, replace it, operate it, maintain it, remove the boat ramp, do anything that we need to do. Absent signing this license agreement, we would not be able to operate or construct the boat ramp. And there is nothing in this agreement that gives us any cause for concern. This is essentially, as you indicated, a boilerplate agreement that is provided by the Department of Environmental Protection for anybody who's building anything that's in the waters of the Commonwealth.
On page 2, where it says, whereas licensees' facilities are for the purpose of recreation, fishing, or other public trust purposes, do we have a definition for what other public trust purposes would be?
That's the giant catch-all. There are a lot of things that would fall under that category, and it allows us, if we were to, for particular purposes that we may want to use the boat ramp, one of the things that they're not asking, that you're not allowed to do, is use this for commercial enterprise. It's not going to be for a commercial enterprise. And when I say commercial, I don't want to give the impression that when I say it's not for commercial enterprise, it still means that we can charge a fee for people using the boat ramp. What it means is we can't use this to allow commercial shipping and fishing to be using this as their access to the river.
We would assume that anything to do with recreation, fishing, boating,
all will fall into that category. Yep. Public trust is all things that will fall into the category of the things that a municipality would normally provide for its residents, its taxpayers, its visitors to be able to use their facilities.
Now this might be next question a little off because it might be on land, but if, say, we decide to set up an arrangement with a local concession owner who's going to be down there selling something on the waterfront or doing some kind, do we run into problems with that? Even, I don't know, can you think of any place we'd be in?
This license agreement would not impact that at all.
Okay. These are exactly the kind of things that people have been wanting the boat ramp for: recreation, fishing, boating of all kinds. So we obviously have to jump through this hoop for the state, and I'll support us doing it.
Mr. Dents?
No, Mr. Clark pretty much just summed it up.
Okay, thank you. And I have no comments or questions either. Public comment? See no hands. Okay, then, is there a motion to adopt the lease agreement with Pennsylvania, or enter into the lease agreement with Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection for the boat ramp?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zepka?
No.
Mrs. Wieslowski?
No.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next item on our agenda is consider authorizing advertisement of amendment to Chapter 168, Parks, subsection 15A. This was tabled at our last meeting. This was, or 2 meetings ago, I guess it was last meeting, an issue regarding leashes and keeping dogs on a leash at the Township Park and Township property. This would not affect people walking their dogs on, Austin Drive or Pinewood or anywhere else. This only affects people that are in Township parks, that you'd have to keep a dog on a leash not greater than 10 feet. And the reason for that, as was brought up by some members of the park security, is that there are people that go to the park that have their dogs on leashes that are much, much, much longer. And the dog, in some cases, very far away from its owner. People riding their bikes on rollerblades or something else can get tangled in the leash because it's so long. Dogs that are that far away from their owner are harder to control. They can jump onto somebody or go after somebody, and if you've got 50 feet of leash between you and the dog, it's going to be awful hard to keep that dog under control. 10 feet is a much more manageable distance. And there was some question and discussions about length, 6 feet, 10 feet. But I think in looking at some of the surrounding municipalities and just listening to our park security and some other ideas, I think 10 feet was sort of an agreed upon length for this. This is just authorizing advertisement, so we'd have to come back again next month and approve this if it's authorized, if we choose to do that. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zipka.
No, I have none.
Mrs. Wieslowski.
I have a question, and it's probably a bit unusual to be asking a newspaper reporter, but I consider you, Mrs. Fisher, an authority on this subject, since your dog was so terribly mauled, and you were a fighter in studying this issue and going to all of the municipalities to garner support for the changes that you needed. And my question is just very simple. Is 10 feet a size leash that you would think would be right? The answer is yes, and I thank you for that answer. I will support it.
It's an interesting coincidence that you happen to be assigned to to cover us tonight, Mrs. Fisher, for the Courier. Mr. Snipes.
Only that I'd be happy to hear from other residents of the township if they believe that this is the right length for the leash. I don't have a dog that I walk on a leash, so I'd be happy to hear from other people.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
No, I have none.
Okay. Again, we'll come back. This is authorizing advertisement. We'll come back to this next month, and so I'll ask if anybody has any public comment now, but you'll have another chance in a month to comment if you don't want to tonight. I see no hands. All right, so is there a motion to authorize advertisement of this amendment to Chapter 168?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right, up to item 10, public comment. Mr. Gray is going to get the sign-in sheet. All right, thank you. Okay, we have 2 names on the list, and obviously other people can speak if they choose to. Brian Binney?
I think this is the most I've talked to you guys in 5 years. Recently, with the 4th of July holidays, we get the sprouting up of the gypsy fireworks tent sales. One in particular caught my attention, and that was one that was located on a Falls Township Senior Center property. I understand that the Senior Center rents space to Boy Scouts and whoever else to sell things, but I'm under the impression that we own that property, And maybe that's not a use that we should condone, and maybe the folks at the senior center should put a little more attention into what it is they're allowing to happen on that property. I don't think it was anything malicious, honest mistake, but maybe you guys up there can, and lady, can make that so it doesn't happen again, certain inappropriate uses. We wouldn't set it up out in front of the police station, so I don't think we should allow it on any of our properties. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mr.
was just,
Binney, excuse me. Do you know if anyone spoke to Mr. Petrus? Is that his name, the manager?
I do not know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just made aware of this late last week and asked Mr. Gray to talk to Mr. Bennett to see if he was aware of this too. According to Mr. Bennett, the merchandise being sold was pretty nondescript and pretty basic stuff, sparklers, those kinds of things, very basic things. But yeah, I just had a conversation last night with Mr. Dents about it and talked with Mr. Snipes, I guess, over the weekend a little bit. It is something that I'm a little concerned about, and I'm trying to think of how to, what we can do, because obviously they rent out to Christmas tree people and it's Christmas time, and how do we control it a little bit more? I think
although it may be legal, it's probably something that we shouldn't associate ourselves with.
Right. Yeah, I agree, and it's interesting you bring it up, because like I said, I just was made aware of it just a few days ago. So.
Wouldn't the solution be very simple before the manager of the senior center could approve an unusual type tenant leasing or paying to use that spot? Check with the township supervisors first.
I mean, that would be okay, but I don't think it needs to be that burdensome. I think there just wasn't any thought given to it. I think it was just a natural response, and somebody wanted to rent the space, and it generates revenue from them.
Right.
It's just maybe they're not thinking that way, and maybe we just have to remind them that we do own it, and we should be paying attention to what kind of uses we allow there.
Right.
So.
But no, it's a good point, Mr. Bain. I appreciate you bringing it up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Smith.
Hi, I'm here to speak about the 2010 road improvement project. One of the last prior meetings I attended, I had posed the question that, would I have the right to refuse having my brand-new asphalt driveway dug up and replaced as part of this project? And if I remember correctly, Mr. Sullivan said he sees no reason why a resident wouldn't have the right to refuse that, but also explained to me there could be a problem with the grade.
Right.
That being said, I would like to propose to the board that I would like to refuse getting my concrete sidewalk, concrete apron, and also the curb directly in front of that apron. I would like to not have that dug up and replaced either. Is that something I have a right to refuse as a resident?
Mr. Sullivan, I guess right now we're in the design stage for that part of the road program, Mr. Sullivan?
The program is actually out to bid.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Designed the roadway in front of Mr. Smith's house. Right now, the design, and you and I should probably look this over when we get a chance, but right now the design shows no change to his driveway. However, the apron and the sidewalk have to be replaced.
Now, why would they have to be replaced?
The road is being raised 10 inches in front of your house.
Is this like law, or is this, why, do I have a right to refuse?
I can't answer what right you might have. What I can tell you is that to put the storm sewer system in the street, we had to raise the road 10 inches in front of your house, which requires us to replace the curb, apron, and sidewalk. Not all of the sidewalk in front of your house, but certainly where the apron is.
So we'll be raising our road 10 inches in front of my house?
Yes.
Okay, I guess that's, I was going to submit some paperwork tonight for approval by the board to not have this done. But that being said, I think I'll have to reword that. When will we get confirmation of this, that this is for sure what's going to be done, or when will the residents be
right now
made aware of all this?
Right now, this design is what we have. If you have time and we can sit down together, I can show you what we have, and if there's some way we can work around it. Right now, I don't see that, but I'm certainly willing to look at it.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great, because there are a lot of residents in my neighborhood that have just had all this brand-new concrete work done just last summer. as well as myself, so, yeah, I'd like to see that. Would any of the other residents be welcome that had the same, started in the same
course.
situation?
Of
or-
course.
Certainly. Yeah, if you can, if you find enough of them, obviously, that want to get together in a just instead of one at a time, you can
Right,
certainly, I
yeah.
mean, this room is open. Mr. Sullivan would have no problem meeting with the people who.
Sure, save you guys some time, too.
Right. Just in terms of, I'm trying to remember the street, Oxford? Yeah, you're on
Oxford Road,
Oxford Road.
yes. Yep.
Is there currently a storm water system there now, or?
No.
No, okay, so that's the issue. You're putting in a brand-new storm sewer.
There is some storm there. The old inlets are being replaced, and some new piping is being put in. So there is some there, but we're certainly making it a lot more extensive.
Okay. All right, and that's obviously the issue, is when you're putting all that stuff underneath the road, and you need to leave, and it has to be the right grade to connect to other pipes. So if the pipe somewhere else is a certain height, the pipe that's going to be in your road to connect to that pipe obviously has to be at a certain height so the water flows. And that dictates the height of the road after they're finished with it.
And there has to be a certain amount of cover on the pipe, meaning dirt and asphalt has to be above the pipe so that there's no freeze thaw or any kind of ground
I mean, that
motion.
sounds pretty extensive. It sounds like there's going to be a lot going on with the landscaping, the lawn, the whole 9 yards. But
That's
anyway,
correct.
I mean, this would be great. Is there a phone number I can reach you at to schedule to come in and talk, or?
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan
absolutely.
can give you that.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Sir,
Sir-
don't go away yet. I have some comments I'd like to make. This is a really perplexing problem, because if your street's bad and you're on the tail end of the road improvement system and you can't tolerate it anymore and you want to do your driveway and your sidewalks, then most people just say, the heck with it, I'm going to do it. I don't think that it's right to tear up something that's good if it has already conformed to the present drainage situation. If there's flooding going, then that's a different thing. We have to look at that. However, a friend of mine just had sidewalks, driveways poured this morning. And, I've been kind of watching the rain. He's out of town, and he's spending thousands of dollars to do that. And, when a person such as yourself and or your neighbors do that kind of improvement, knowing that it's going to be eventually done by falls, I really believe that we owe you some reimbursement for that.
Yeah, that was just the thing. We weren't made aware of this when we applied late,
Yes,
last
I
summer
remember
to
that
get all this
discussion.
work done.
And I still feel that way. I don't think it's fair. You just need to, there's no simple solution to it, but I wanted.
I welcome permit reimbursement, but they were talking $300. This is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, but
compared to
even
what I
more
would
than
expect.
that, you've spent, I know how difficult it is to get someone who's professional enough to do the job right and everything, and that would be one of the situations that would be required, but you don't look like the sort of guy that would go and put something second-rate, in his yard and in his sidewalks. And I feel that Falls Township owes you. Now, if there's not flooding on your street, I don't know why we're putting a storm system in. Have you noticed flooding?
No, not on my street at all.
So then why, I cannot understand why we need to dig up something that is perfectly functional, no one's being flooded, but you've mentioned that other people on your street have also done what you did and
Yes,
replaced their
yeah.
driveways and
Yeah,
their
and
sidewalks.
a couple adjacent streets.
I think we need to take another look at that, and I think that needs whacked out of the contractor's job. I think that the reimbursement for the streets that he does not have to do, or the driveways or the sidewalks that he doesn't have to do, I am in favor of doing something to give you money back.
Yeah. And I don't want to stand.
I want to be on record saying that, because I just think that the delay has been the lack of coordination on our part with the residents in being able to give them the timetable when their street is going to be done. And I I've said all I'm going to say on the subject, but you can count on me as a kindred spirit. I would fight for anything that I thought was fair and equitable.
Right. I just want to say, I mean, I'm not here to stand in the way of progress. If our street needs, you know, something certain to be done to it to correct certain situations, that has to be done. It's just that, you know, in the way it was handled, we applied for a permit, no knowledge that all this stuff would be getting torn up. It's just a waste.
I'm totally in sympathy with you, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I just want to let you know, Mr. Clark, you're currently working on some language for reimbursing people in this kind of situation, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Harvey. At your direction, my office has drafted a resolution which would permit reimbursement of permit fees to residents who have done work, paid for their permits, and then their road has been reconstructed within a 12-month period, or it's actually more than a 12-month period. The resolution was drafted within the last week or so. Mr. Gray and I went over some of the language today. Some of the language needs to just be tweaked a little bit, and it should be ready to be submitted to the 5 board members within the next week or so, and then voted on at your August meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, those are the only names I have on the list. Are there any people? Mr. Dell?
I think there's a much easier solution here. When this gentleman was going to get his permit, our permit department should have a list of the roads that are to be replaced.
They have that.
And
now. Yeah.
Even if it's within 3 years, and they should notify the person who's getting this permit that, hey, within 3 years, there's a very good possibility your curbs and sidewalks are going to be ripped out if we change the grade. It's not saying it will be, but you may want to wait the 3 years or 2 years or 12 months because we're ripping it out and replacing it. Might be the same grade. He might have a better concrete guy than the township had. It doesn't make a difference, but they should at least nip it in the bud at the permit level and say, listen, we're tearing this place up within 2 years, so you may want to hold off and maybe fill in your sidewalk and cold patch your driveway and deal with it for another 24 months. But this way we could avoid any problems and say, listen, if you pull this permit and you do the work, you're not being reimbursed for the work, maybe the permit fees, but not the work at all. And just
that actually has been done in the past few months. I think it was when Mr. Smith first brought it to our attention that had happened. And some of the difficulty is that, again, the decision made about which roads to do is sort of between Mr. Arneo and his crew take a look at what roads are in bad shape. They talk to Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan talks to Mr. Gray about how much money we expect to have, and then he takes a look at how many, how long these roads are, what can we fit in with this kind of budget in terms of, and so that decision isn't always made so that the people working at the code enforcement desk know it right away.
How many years out is the list?
Well, even with that, the roads can change. The road that's scheduled to be done,
but they're all scheduled to be done.
They're scheduled to be done now. What's up on the what's up on the table now in the code enforcement is a list basically of these are the roads left to be done, and they're going to be done within the next couple of years.
Okay, so if someone now goes for a permit on his street,
they're
they'll
going to
say,
see
listen, you don't want this. The guys will. So you guys already have that in place as we speak.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah, we do. We put it in a few months ago after Mr. Smith's incident. So
okay, thank you.
Okay.
May I be heard on this,
Sure.
Mr. Harvey? When I was on this board in the 70s, the supervisors had the responsibility of doing the road inspections. And where there was always a consensus about what roads were needed to be repaired and which ones were the worst ones. Surprisingly enough, laypersons like myself were able to look at them, and we graded what we saw. And that went beautifully. It seems to me that our road program now is being done in a haphazard fashion, not with any, I confess that I don't know what Trinity Paving is doing or General Asphalt is doing, and, we're not kept in the loop. And I just think that there has to be a better way to monitor it to prevent what this gentleman had to go through. And I have heard complaints about it. They said, didn't you guys used to inspect our roads? And I said, absolutely. I don't know when that stopped, because there was the period where I was in the court, and I was not as well versed on what was happening with township ordinances and things like that. But I am concerned about it. I like to see everything fair, and this seems so unfair.
Well, I disagree with you pretty strongly. I think right now Mr. Arneo making the decision about which roads he feels are in the worst shape, along with the engineer, who's a professional on this matter, and probably one of the finest engineers we've ever had in this township. I'd rather have them make the decision, quite frankly. I'm sure I could go down a street and tell which one's worse than another. You know, these are the guys who are out there every day. They're the ones who plow it. They're the ones who maintain it. They're the ones who know it better, quite frankly, than I do. And I think they do a very good job of deciding, you know, which roads need to be done, and then working together with the issues of the budget and working with issues of location, trying to maximize the contractors. You know, that's something that Mr. Sullivan specializes in, and I have no problem putting my faith in him.
Mr. Harvey,
certainly there was a disagreement. Excuse me. Certainly there was an issue, and I agree that the sharing of that information with residents, like Mr. Smith and others, should have been done better. That's a problem, I guess, has existed for a while. I remember hearing it from people when I ran for this office back in '03. So even before I got here, there was an issue with people that had done their driveways, done their sidewalks, and then a year later the road program came in. And so it's always been a little bit of a problem communicating that. But we're trying to do that better. We apologize to those who it's inconvenienced. We're trying to do better at it, and we're not going to be perfect at things, but we're going to try and do the best we can. So.
I respect your right to disagree, but everyone has their own point of view.
Certainly.
And I'd like to press my point of view. I see nothing wrong with the supervisors being compelled to take the tour and look at our roads. That was always enlightening and informative. Phase 2 could be Joe Arneo and the engineer taking a look at our list and saying, well, we don't agree for this reason. And I think that's a more orderly way to do it. And my criticism mostly pertains to the fact that the residents were not put on notice about what was going to happen, and I think that's reprehensible. So we both have a different point of view there.
Okay. All right. Any other names for people for public comment? Let's see.
Yes, I am going to do public comment tonight. I have been attending many meetings to discuss school taxes. And on February 17th, I attended a school board meeting, and I told the school board members that if they raised our school taxes again this year, I absolutely was going to fight to replace certain members of the board. I said, if you vote to increase our taxes, then I have an issue with you. Now, I'd like to discuss the fact that we have Wayne de Blasio, who sits on the Pennsbury School Board, representing the wrong region. And Mr. Zupka, could you have that you showed me tonight, Phil? I have been active in doing something about that fact because Region 2 does not have their quota of representatives on the school board. There are 3 regions, 3 people from each of those 3 regions. Now we have in Region 2 only 2 representatives because Mr. de Blasio is representing us and he belongs in Region 3. Now what is necessary to replace him is a quo warranto, and that is basically put, I've filed a couple of them way back in my ancient history here, but it says, by what right do you hold this seat legally? Because he is not holding that seat on that school board legally, and his was the deciding vote for the tax increase this year. And that is just not fair. Now, Mr. Zupka came in tonight and he said, "Did you see these?" And I said, "Yes, I've had copies of those for quite a while." They were left in his door this weekend, Phil?
I believe today.
Rolled up?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's from the Board of Elections in Bucks County. One letter went to Deborah de Blasio, Mr. de Blasio's wife, and the other one went to Wayne de Blasio, dated May 21st, 2008. Now, they did nothing, and the school board turned a blind eye to that. Now, there has been a request to have him removed legally. I was part of that, so was Mr. Zupka, and we'll see what happens. But there is a lot at stake in the Pennsbury School District, and heaven knows we've got enough problems without having illegal representatives. So I call that to the attention of anyone who is interested. People do watch these tapes, but I do not think that it's proper that Region 2, which is comprised of mostly the Fairless Hills area and other, I won't go into the descriptions of how the regions are divided. I have the maps. But Region 2 is shy a representative, and the illegal representative that sits there in that seat was the deciding vote for the school tax increase. Now, I predict that it's going to get much worse unless we do something about it in next year's primary election, because school board members are allowed to cross-file. That means any candidate can run as a Republican and as a Democrat. And if you do not give credence to that very important point, then you can kiss your school district goodbye and you can expect the higher taxes next year. The teacher's contract expired on June 30th. We're waiting like a ticking time bomb to see what happens there. But I wanted to let the public know that, God willing, if my health holds up, I intend to lead that fight next year in the primary to put school board members on the Pennsbury board who belong to the correct region and who will care about the children and the taxpayers, not about just spending money frivolously. And thank you.
Okay. All right, those are all the names on the list. We'll move on with item 11, which are the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, one from May 17th, one from June 15th. We'll take the ones from May 17th first. Comments or questions, corrections by board members on the May 17th minutes? Mr. Zupka?
No.
Mr. Dents?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
None.
And I have none. Okay. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented for May 17, 2010?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Abstentions?
I'd like to point out that I was not called because for these two meetings, I was absent and I could not vote on the minutes. I wasn't here and did not participate in the meeting. And I had a good excuse. I had a heart attack.
Okay. All right. The next minutes are for June 15, 2010. The comments or questions, corrections for the minutes. Mr. Zupka?
No. No.
And Mr. Snipes?
No. Excellent minutes once again, Mrs. Pullen. Thank you.
Mr. Dents?
None.
And I have none. Okay. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented for June 15, 2010?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Okay. All right.
Give me the opportunity to abstain on the last one.
I did actually, but
I heard no request for abstentions. I'm required to abstain on both of these minutes, not having been present.
okay. Engineers report is next, dated July 16th, 2010. This is the engineering report for June. Mr. Sullivan, any highlights here?
As we reported earlier, the major portion of the road program is out to bid. We expect the bids to be received on August 11th and a notice of intent to award on August 17th, the next supervisor's meeting. Mill and overlay portion is underway. Most of the milling in Birch Valley is completed already. The rest of it should be completed by tomorrow, clean up on Thursday, and start paving in Birch Valley on Friday. The other 3 roads, Durham Court, Buck, and Raleigh, over in the Fairleigh Soul section, the milling should begin early next week, Monday, and all work should be completed, for the most part, by next Friday.
Okay.
So about a week and a half.
All right. Thank you very much. Comments or questions regarding the engineer's report? Mr. Zipka?
No, I have none.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
Not from me, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Dents?
None.
And I have none. All right, is there a motion to accept the June 2010 engineering report?
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, all right. Okay, all right, bill list for July 20, 2010. Bill list is the amount of $1,841,147.51. Comments or questions on the bill list, Mr. Zipka?
None.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dents?
No.
And I'll just make note of the fact that 1.8 million of that, around over 700,000, almost 800,000, is for payroll for employees of the township. Another 200 and almost 4,000 is health insurance. So we're looking at almost $1 million out of the 1.8 is just payroll and health insurance, as well as other payments, for example, for the road program, the Pinewood Pool, as well as electric bills, which are in here for PICO, which is a big chunk of change, $55,000 for street lights, or for PICO bills. So, all right, is there a motion to accept the bills as presented, $1,841,147.51?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second the motion?
Motion's made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zepka?
No.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
My vote will be no, but I have a comment that I'd like to include in the minutes. When the necessary bills are payroll for our staff, our police department, and the vendors who do business with this township, have those bills broken out separately so that I will not be forced in a lump sum to rubber stamp a group of bills for the pay-to-play guys and all of the things that I object to in the way we're spending our money. That is why I vote no on the invoices, and I think that it's ridiculous not to have 2 sets of bills, but they won't do it, and so my vote is consistently no, with explanation.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay. Next up would be manager comment. Mr. Gray?
Thank you. Just a few items tonight. The first item is from the Reverend Thomas Cox, representing the Evangelical Presbyterian Church. They are requesting the Board of Supervisors to consider providing relief by waiving any or all costs related to required permits for them to put a new roof on their building. The Board is asked to consider this request.
Okay, and this is a pretty standard request for different churches, houses of worship that have work to do. I remember this being done for St. Joseph the Worker several years ago. For such a this kind of a case, obviously it makes sense for the township to do what it can to waive permit fees, make things a little easier, especially during these economic times. Any comments or questions regarding this request to waive the permitting for the new roof for the Evangelical Presbyterian Church? This is at 401 Pinewood Drive. Mr. Zipka, comments or questions?
No, none.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
Yes, I have a comment. I think that our fee schedule is outrageous. We're the richest of all the municipalities in Bucks County. Falls Township is number 1 with their treasury. And to nickel-dime people and the houses of worship, and I don't think that we need to charge these high fees for a man who wants to add an addition to his home or make his property more beautiful. And I just think that we're out of line with those crazy fees. So I certainly am going to support this request to waive the fee, but I wish we'd go a lot further and take a look at our fee schedules and give the people a break when they want to fix up their places.
Okay, Mr. Snipes?
I support this completely. Question I have, I believe we've gone over our fees pretty closely, and Mr. Gray, we are in line or lower actually than neighboring townships, are we not?
Yes, that's correct. We had a review done by Mr. Bennett some time ago, and he found our costs to be reasonable to other municipalities.
Mr. Gray, they don't have the kind of money we do. Let's be honest about it. Because there isn't a municipality in the entire county who has the money that Falls Township has, and I know because I brought it in.
Well, Ben Salem's similar to Falls Township.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
No comments.
Okay, I don't have any either. All right, then. Is there a motion to waive the permit fees for the Evangelical Presbyterian Church?
So moved.
Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Snipes, seconded by Mr. Dents. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
My next item, I have a letter from Richard Lemanowitz representing Liberty Towers located at 9188 New Falls Road. The board is asked to consider an extension of time until September 30th for the application for land development for this project.
Okay. This is for, I believe, cell towers, right? Mr. Lamano to handle cell towers? Okay. All right. We hear that name Liberty Towers. My first thought is the building that was supposed to go over near where Mr. Dents lives. That caused a lot of uproar, and I want to make sure people understand it's not. It's a different, it's Liberty Towers. These are actual cell towers. So, okay, motion to grant a letter of extension to September 30, 2010. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
My next item is a letter from Carolyn Edwards representing CVA. They have a preliminary final land development project. They're requesting a 60-day time extension until September 20th, 2010. The board is asked to consider this extension.
Okay. That would be between our first and second meeting, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, it would fall one day short. I think the second meeting's the 21st. I think Mr. Sullivan's checking his phone there. Either that or he's looking for a Red Sox score.
Yes, 21st is the second meeting.
21st is second. All right, so we'd have to, okay, so we have 2 more meetings to take a look at this. Okay, is there a motion to grant a 60-day letter of extension, 60-day extension to September 20th, 2010 for CVA Incorporated?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
My next item, just a few announcements from the Park and Rec Department. First item, Pinewood Pool memberships are available at discount prices starting actually this past July 15th. Family memberships for residents are $110 and for non-residents $172. Individual memberships for residents are $60, non-residents are $117. And senior citizen individual memberships for residents, $35, and non-residents, $45. The summer concert series continues at the Falls Township Community Park. Upcoming groups include the Uptown String Band on Sunday, July 25th. Big Band from the Valley will perform on Sunday, August 1st. Point Blank Band will perform Sunday, August 8th, and the Dennis Ostapode's Polka Band on Sunday, August 15th.
What was the last one?
The Dennis Ostapode's Polka Band. And again, this is at the Community Park Phase 1 Pavilion, Sunday evenings, starting at 6 until 8 p.m. Special events at the Pinewood Pool include 2 teen dances remaining this summer on Thursday, July 22nd, and Thursday, August 26th. Times of these dances are from 7:45 until 10:30. Admission is $3 for teens ages 12 to 16. Family movie nights remaining in the summer on Saturday, July 26th. The Fantastic Mr. Fox, Saturday, August 7th, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and Saturday, August 21st, Alvin and the Chipmunks. These family movie nights are free and start at 8:30. And if you have any additional questions, kindly call the Park and Rec Department at 215-949-9000, extension 220. And finally, I just want to announce that GTS Mylars are ready for signature. And that's all I have.
All right. Mr. Gray, the Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, is that the first one?
Yes, that's Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel.
The Squeakquel, okay.
Pete, I don't know how you got through that with a straight face.
Okay. I wanted to make sure it was the Squeakquel. We usually try and show the most current one.
You're
So.
the only one that got through that with a straight face.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so thank you very much. Board comment. We'll begin with Mr. Snipes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Excellent meeting this evening. I did want to say that I've been reading through with interest the Biles Island Master Planning Handbook, the first step we've gotten toward looking at the long-range planning for recreational use for Biles Island, so I was glad to see that. The second is, I thought we had two good discussions recently, one on traffic issues, and I hope we'll revisit that soon, and the other was on the issue of sidewalks on New Falls Road, and I hope we will revisit that soon. There was a resident here tonight on the way in who's pulled me aside and said, I hope we'll come back to deal with the issues of sidewalks again soon, so I hope we will. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zupka?
I had brought it up before about the meeting we had, we'll say the town hall style, a meeting on traffic. A lot of concerns of residents were brought up. I think all of us as individuals, we see different things, but the residents that showed up, they brought up a lot of things. And some of the plans that were shown can remedy things, but we're working with an older township, an older road system, where some of the designs that were shown were from newer developments that they were built in from the beginning, and that's why I believe this is something we have to do. But I think this is something that's going to. I think it's going to be costly, but we have to do it. It's been brought up by many of the residents, and just a simple thing as putting a three-way stop in. But maybe that stop is one of these places that should have the raised, we'll say plateau, or the raised crosswalks at the same time to help people realize they have to slow down. But I'm looking forward to this traffic project going forward, and just everybody take it easy in the heat. The weather out there has been a little brutal. I guess we also complain about the cold weather, but this is a little rough right now, and so keep an eye on, especially when your pets, the youngsters, get out there and run around and have no concept about we'll say being hydrated. So you have to keep an eye on them, and as they always say, if you have let's say an elder neighbor, just make sure you see them maybe once a day or every other day. Just make sure they're doing what they should. My father-in-law is going to be 91, and I still have to go down and convince him to turn his air conditioning on. He says he's comfortable sitting there, but you have to keep an eye on everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Kozlowski?
Phil, I'm only 80 years old, and I don't want anybody looking in on me. I can take care of myself. When I'm 90 or 100, then you can have somebody watch out for me, because I'll probably fall down the steps or something. But I want to discuss the meeting that we had about the traffic, because I did like it, and I know that fixing an old road structure and bringing it into this century is going to cost a lot of money, but I would rather see that money spent where all of the residents will benefit from the expenditure, not like some of the projects that we're doing that just benefit a few people in specialized interests. We have to work for the common good of us all, and that's the end of my board comment.
Mr. Dents?
I want to echo what Mr. Zupka and Mrs. Vislowski said about the traffic. It was an excellent meeting we had, and something that we do need to move forward on. I just wanted to add that we only advertised our leash law tonight, and that was something that I was opposed to until I talked to the park guards and realized what a problem we do have down there. And the biggest thing is that people need to control their dogs. I mean, the leashes help, obviously, you need a leash, but more than anything, you need to be in control of your pet. And just be careful and consider it when you're walking in the park of other people that don't have a dog or where your dog's going. That's all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you. A few things I want to make board members aware. We're talking about a couple issues that have come up. The traffic issue obviously is one that's going to be ongoing, but also the issue of the sidewalks on New Falls Road. We had a presentation, a pretty thorough one by Traffic Planning and Design, several weeks ago, and want to make sure that we are thinking about how we can address those issues, what the best way is to go forward, if we're going to go forward at all. In addition to that, there's a memo that I put out just today, which was at your seats here, regarding 3 other issues that I would like board input on. 3 issues that are being raised by staff members here at the township, whether it's police or code enforcement issues that they'd like us to take a look at, and they are at a state where they need some direction from the board whether or not we should move forward on these or not. So please focus on that memo if you wouldn't mind, and contact either myself or Mr. Gray regarding those 3 issues. And lastly, I want to let board members know the Challenger Field is underway. The construction of that project is underway. It should not take a tremendous amount of time. I think they did a lot of the excavation this past week, and then it's just a matter of coming in. Is that material, Mr. Silva, is that poured material, or is that placed in like pavers?
It's poured in place in 2 separate lifts.
Okay. All right. And so
Base goes down and then the top goes down.
Right. Okay. And so we're looking at Challenger Field that'll be ready certainly by September, I think, if for kids that want to play ball in the fall. I know they're talking about maybe even doing a special league for the Challenger kids in the fall, just so they can take advantage of the field. They don't want to have to wait till April. So it's great that it's finally got underway. Very happy, very appreciative to people like Steve DeSangro, who put in a tremendous amount of effort over the past couple of years working with Mr. Sullivan. Thankful again to TNM for donating all the engineering, in terms of the past couple of years. All their work has been donated, so appreciate that. And Levittown Continental did actually let us borrow a photo album which chronicles sort of the history of the Challenger League, and that's here. Is it in this conference room or your office, Mr. Gray? Somewhere back there, right?
Yes, in the conference room.
So if any of the board members want to take a look at that, we'll get it. I told them we'd get it back to them eventually, but if any board member wanted to see that, it's back there. And with that, I thank you all for the time, for those people that came out, and I'll look for motion to adjourn, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would
I
like
move
your
that we adjourn.
indulgence, to correct some incorrect information that's been given at this meeting tonight.
Mr.
This is not the forum for it.
Mrs. Vislowski, despite the fact that you were incorrect in your comments earlier about Mr. de Blasio, I am not going to allow Mrs. de Blasio to respond simply because if she were sitting up here and you were sitting down there, it wouldn't be fair for you either, or her.
And I agree, thank you. The point is that it is incorrect information.
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
is. Thank you. Is there a
It's
motion
all
to adjourn, please?
documented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.